Hello and welcome to the Unpresentable Parts podcast, Eve edition. And today we are joined by our guest host, Amaris Ayon, aka
Triple A.
Yep. And we are excited to join you guys, reconvene, start over. But super excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I guess a little bit about me and a little bit about us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I met Sam in my studies.
Oh my goodness, that's insane, right?
9 years ago. We're actually coming on to 10 years this year. 2016. I met you in my studies. When I was coming back and reengaging to church, because I was a kid who was raised in the church, left at 18, said I was gonna go find another church, but was church hurt, and then due to certain circumstances, my mom was like, because she was going on a missions trip, she was like, "You need to find yourself a community," and I was like, okay, alrighty then. So at this point, I've already finished school. I'm already done my graduate studies. Now it's time for me to go find a community. So I started looking at different churches, and of course, I every church has its pluses and minuses. I'm not gonna lie. When I heard about this church, there were some pluses and minuses, but I came in with an open heart. One of my coworkers, who, funny story, she wasn't even looking for church at the time. She was like, "Oh yeah, I have a friend who invited me to come to this church. You should go and check it out. Not her go, but like you should go." So I was like, "All right, I'll try it out." So she beat me to it, but I went and she started studying, and then I started studying, and then my story will always be that I got ambushed.
By who? Not me.
Not you. Okay. Not you. I got ambushed on these studies because when I think of studies, I think of like Bible studies, like where everybody's sitting here, we're all learning a topic.
Yeah.
But this navigating through your relationship with Christ was a lot different from what I knew mainstream wise. Yeah. So, and that's how we ended up with you. I think you were like my second studies, because I started off with Carol with Mo and Candace, and then ended up with you and Harry's wife, Carlene.
Yeah.
So I ended up with you guys being my women of wisdom in my studies.
That's so insane. I can't believe it's almost 10 years.
10 years that we have known each other.
Wow.
That you were a part of my study.
Yeah. It feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
But I mean, so much has happened in between.
Oh, yeah.
And I think even when you said 10 years, I feel like there's still so much to learn about each other.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's 10 years in the same church. But, I think there's that whole thing where you can, you almost have, when you're in the same place, I can't think of the word, you almost use that as if you have connection, but you don't have connection.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so I feel like there's still so much I don't know about you, and I know so much you don't know about me, because you know me in one role, right?
Correct. Yes.
And I know I've changed so much in the last 10 years, and which is why I love even why we're talking about the topic we're talking today about Eve, and really kind of doing a deeper dive in who she is, because I think, I don't know, it's particularly in the last, 3, 4, 5 years, but I think the last 2 years, I have gotten a lot more sympathetic of Eve. I feel a lot more connected to Eve. And I don't know, something about my heart has shifted with her.
Which brings us to what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Which is the question that we have is, because when we were talking about it, I asked, because I've listened to the podcast. It's such an amazing podcast. If you haven't checked it out, please go ahead and check it out. Her and Jasmine do an amazing job tackling these different conversations. But I came in with the thing of like, but why Eve? So that's the question that we've been discussing and we've been talking about. Why Eve?
Yeah. And I think why Eve? Because honestly, she is one of the most talked about people in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Most talked about, least understood, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, but Eve is, I really feel like she is super misunderstood. Just with all the figures in scripture. When you think of Eve, you think of failure, temptation,
The fallen.
Right?
The fallen. Because
like it's all negative.
It's very, listen, okay, so when we were having this discussion, every time I think of Eve, I think of, like, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, the GIFs or those scenarios that they post up on social media where they're like, okay, if you can meet somebody in heaven and have a conversation or dinner with them, who would you have it? And I kid you not, for very negative reasons, I would say I want to talk to Eve. Why? Because of the fallen.
Painful childbirth.
Periods.
Hormonal.
Period. Hormonal imbalance.
Menopause. Like, girl, what you do?
Which later on, when I was doing my studies to like, you have to educate yourself a little bit, right? Understand the whole story. Yeah. I was like, this is what we would classify the first curse.
Yeah.
So the curse that was given to her because of what happened with the snake or the serpent.
It's so weird. Like, what do you say? Do you say the devil? Do you say the serpent? Do you say well, it's going to be interchangeable the whole time.
Interchangeable. So like when that happened, which brought forth deceit and the separation between man and God, these, because of it, God had to punish.
Yeah. Right?
So I think we need to understand the bigger story, because when I talk to you, you're like, she's misunderstood. And I'm like, but how?
Yeah.
Because I'm judging.
Yeah. And I think you said a word, right? You said punish. God had to punish, which is true. Mm-hmm. There was punishment. But I think what maybe even language wise, I'm a big words person. I love words. And a lot of times you may find me trying to find the right word, which can be really frustrating. I know my husband gets frustrated with that sometimes. Even my kids, just say, Mom, but words mean a lot to me. And so when I think of Adam and Eve, yes, there was punishment, but in a lot of ways, I think it was more consequences of their actions, right? Like they had to face the consequences of their actions. And I think the consequences of Eve's action feels like, the way we talk about it, eternal punishment for her.
Because it is. Because the way that I look at it, yeah. Right? Because, and this is what stops me from seeing the whole picture. And that's the reason why we're making the deep dive, is because if we're going to make a judgment, right, we need to make sure that we have the whole picture.
Yes.
And I think I didn't take it in consideration that there's, like, if you've ever seen, if you've ever done the Bible recap, we're always looking for the God moment. I think it's trying to find that God moment in Eve, because there is more to her.
Yeah.
And if you want to point a reference, when it comes to scripture, is her story is on Genesis 2:18, and it continues on to 3:24, which is the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
So if you want references on her life and where we hear, definitely take a look at those scriptures. But I don't know, sis, I'm having a hard time, and I think this is why we need it.
Yeah. I mean, and think about it, guys. When you go back and read that, there were a lot of firsts for Eve. She was the first woman, the first woman to wrestle with God's words. First, I would say the first person, really, to wrestle with God's words. The first person to be questioned about their identity. When I think first, that's a lot.
You're right.
That's a lot. You're pioneering a lot. You're not living life in a space. And I don't think she would have been thinking through, I'm the first.
No.
I think in our society today, and as a woman of color, for me, there is a pressure of the first. But I think part of that pressure also goes back to how Eve is. It is connected for me. It is connected. I feel it deeply. And I think, but even when we're here talking about it, I just want to say, we are not here to fix the situation about Eve. We're not here to defend her, though.
I think
Okay, I'm probably gonna be a little bit.
you say not to defend her, but I feel like to a certain extent we do have to reclaim her image.
Yes.
So we have to look at her in her entirety because
Yes.
I think when I think of that, I think of something that can be very difficult, which is grieving, right? And oftentimes when we're grieving, after I took a grieving and loss class within our church, I learned that people oftentimes are always like, you got to remember the good parts of a person. But then we don't take in consideration, if in order for us to move forward in our grief, we have to remember the whole person, the good and the bad.
Yes.
And like I said, right now, there's bad stigma that I have here.
Yes.
Because she's blamed for, first and foremost, she was the first woman to be thrown under the bus by man. Okay? First, that doesn't set up men.
Rolled over by a man.
Rolled over by man. And you know what, brothers, we love you. This is not anything a shot towards you.
It's not anti-men.
No, it's not anti-men. But we have evidence there, right? And then on top of that, the curses. And then I think I remember you one time saying she was the first person canceled. I think that stuck with me so much.
Yes.
Which is like, oh yeah, that's right. Because I think it's hard for a person who only sees the scriptures. It's hard for me to relate to Eve, but if you don't take the time to sit down and see the whole picture, you can see how relatable it is.
Yeah.
So what you're bringing forth is I feel like it's a sense of relatability and highlighting things that we don't take in consideration.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because I think to understand why Eve still matters, and I feel this very personally. I feel like in the last couple years, I've been reduced to a moment. I've been reduced to a conversation with someone. I've been reduced to a scenario and not seen as a whole person. And so I think that's one of the reasons why for me, I really resonate with her in this season of my life. And so for those of us who may have felt that way, reduced to a moment, reduced to a situation, not seen and not taken as a whole. As we move forward, I really hope that this speaks to you, and really gives you some language, some solace, But I would say, please go back and read those passages that Amaris brought up. But you talked about reclaiming her identity, right? Reclaiming. So tell me a little bit about when you think of reclaiming her, what that looks like, reclaiming her, who she really was supposed to be I think there's a couple things, right? Who she was supposed to be.
Like you said, who she was called. Then there's what she has done, and then what has she done afterwards. Right. And how she dealt with what she's been called. And so kind of like, what was the expectation? Yeah. What was the reality? And then what was the fruit of that reality? Okay. And does it all connect?
I like that. I actually have a note here, and I love this kind of arrow diagram. It's basically moving from her origin to the fall to the healing.
To the healing, yeah.
And I think where it connects with us is the agency. Because I think a lot of ways in life, especially women, men too, but since I'm a woman, I can speak from a woman's perspective. Yeah. I think there is a tendency to use Eve as a scapegoat.
Yeah.
And not take personal agency in the spiritual world sometimes.
She's a scapegoat and she's a footstool.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Whenever I have my cycle, dang it, Eve, or whenever something hard with woman, when I look at what I know of her and what I've claimed from her identity, as it resonates with me, like I said, it was always the negative part, like, oh, I'm struggling with men because of Eve. I'm struggling with my body because of Eve. We're in this position because of Eve. Because naturally, as human beings, we want to blame somebody. Yeah. So she ends up being the footstool, the footstep. She ends up being the punching bag. Yeah. She ends up being we're all here because of Eve.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because there's more to her. So when I answering your question, when I say reclaim her image, is to me it's looking at her in her entirety.
Yeah.
Because there is more to her.
Yeah. A question I'd like to pose to the audience is, what if the story we inherited isn't the whole story?
Mm.
It's kind of what we've already been talking about, but I just want to put in that simple question for you. What if the story we inherited isn't the whole story? Um, I think of when her first big kind of situation was her conversation. You alluded to that earlier, with the devil, with the serpent, with however we refer to him, right? And his question to her was, did God really say? She was the first person to hear the voice of doubt. So here is the first time creation, right, faces confusion, and there's a spiritual distance that occurs, a self distance that occurs, and so I think that was a lot. That was a first.
That is a first. That is a first. And you don't take that in consideration that he didn't go to man, he went to woman, and that is the first intro. That's
right.
Because I think one of the things that we learn about scriptures, and I think what I've been learning when I'm deep diving into scriptures, is that everything is placed for a reason. Even the book of Numbers. If you've read the book of Numbers, it's just numbers. There's a lot of why, and I have to ask myself, why is this important? Why was this so important to be put here? And God is an intentional God. God is laying out something for a reason. And I think that's something that we don't take in consideration. These very first conversations, these very first purposes, these things that happen, because he's trying to paint a picture. And I think at the end of the day, it's finding that sense of legacy, the reason for the legacy, because if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be where we are at this point. And the importance of the journey, because nobody...
Yeah. Well, let me ask a question, right? Because when we read about Eve, she did not get direction from God directly based on the information we have.
Correct.
So, based on what I've read, Adam got the first hand, don't do this, don't do A, B, C, D, and E. So we don't actually have the conversation with her and Adam. So when she was confronted, or the conversation approached by the serpent, he said, did God really say? I just want to give her some grace. Because think about, okay, like audience, think about this for yourself too. Whose voice has shaped how you hear God? Whose voice has shaped how I hear God? Right? I think have you ever played the game Telephone?
Yes.
Okay. So one person says one thing, and then you share the same information. If you have 5 people, by the end, the message, there's been a little tweaking to it, right?
Of course.
So I don't know if Adam put an extra fence for her. I don't, and you don't, right? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
So when she said when he says, "Did God really say?" You know what comes to my mind is, why didn't he say, did Adam really say?
That is true.
I know that sounds kind of like, ooh, Sam, how could you bring that up? But
I mean, again, purposeful. Right? It's purposeful. It's again, if you were to take the time to look at it from different perspectives, that's not the first. You don't think of these small details that can change the dynamic on how you look, change the story, and change how things are looked.
Yeah, because why do you say, well, what did Adam say to you? What did Adam tell you that God said? So I think about those things now, right? Because I just think how I hear God, I heard it through my grandmother, who was very Catholic. Very, I call myself a flip Pentecostal Baptist non-denominational, you know, because I literally remember going to mass, coming home, going to Pentecostal church, coming home, going back to Pentecostal church, and then when there were the meetings, I'm from the Caribbean, when there were the meetings, going to the Baptist conventions. And so I've been so influenced by different voices and different people and how I view God. And I think for us, when we think about Eve, the grace that I talk about giving to her is, can we put ourselves in her shoes and just think through, I wonder what Adam said to Eve, versus, well, you went into this conversation, and we can just deep dive into this a lot more. I'm bringing up questions.
Yes.
Maybe things we have not thought of.
We have not considered. Yeah.
And that the enemy is really cunning and using the phrase, did God really say?
And she answered.
She did.
She did answer. This is what he said.
And maybe she felt like she was also defending what Adam said to her. I don't know. I'm just saying things to think about. We're not theologians. Theologians. We're not theologians. We're just saying, let's kind of talk through this. Let's put some meat on there. Let's give her some depth and bring some wholeness to her, you know. And then obviously she goes through this whole conversation with God. Another question that comes up for Eve is, well, Adam and Eve together, is, where are you? So first it's the confusion, the spiritual self-distrust, right? That occurs with Eve, with where the doubt comes in. Did God really say? And now she's gone through the situation. Adam's kind of throwing her under the bus. And we will talk about this more. We're not, this is just kind of the first time bringing all these things up. But the God comes now in the picture, and he's like, where are you?
Yeah.
And so,
but as you can see is that even in this conversation, the first focus is on the fall.
Yeah.
Because and then now, for some reason, what brought up to mind was like even the scriptures beforehand. How did Eve come into the picture? So like, you know, brings back, what is the origin story, right? Because and then also when I hear about Eve and I hear about, like, let's say if I'm entering into a relationship, which I am, you know, shout out, hey boyfriend, you know, so you hear about man and woman and how woman is created to be a helper and how man gave her the name woman because she came from him. And what was the purpose of that? Again, there's a story behind, before the fall and what her intentions were. And then there's what happens, the aftermath. Because then now we're talking about God asks us that question, where are you? Yeah. So even in this conversation, we can't help ourselves because of the narrative to focus in on the fall.
You're right. I can't wait to deep dive into some of those things you're talking about, which we will be doing. Remember, this is just kind of setting the tone, putting some questions out there so that when you go back and read, you're thinking through those when we go deeper into these conversations. And so when he says, where are you? The theme of all that stuff comes to, there's suddenly silence, there's absence. She's experiencing this for the first time, right? The first woman to really accountability.
Yeah. And then the first time that we avoid.
Yes.
We avoid like, and this is man and woman, because they stayed silent and they were afraid, because even Adam says we were afraid to talk to you, to say something, because God knew what was going on. He's like, I know where you guys are. Yeah. But I'm asking you, where are you? And he says, because I had to go back and I had to read this and see the dynamic, and I'm like, these are all key things. So first time avoiding God. Or feeling shame and guilt about what has happened, because and then he's like, who told you you guys were naked? So like, so when you think of her, I feel like there's going to be many questions and thoughts. So why did this happen? Why did not happen? You know, how do we view her? It makes an impression on how you can relate, because I remember, Sam, you would say, it's like we would take time, like in our women's midweeks, and we would try to connect with the women of the Bible. So I remember we did a study on Ruth and Naomi, and we spend a lot of time on Ruth and Naomi and being able to see things through their perspective. And I believe that there's like 4 to 6 chapters in their story, but that's not a lot. You know what I'm saying? But we still, for us women, and understanding God and understanding how He views us, these things are important. But how do we see it as the bigger picture?
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think even when you were saying, you said something about Adam throwing her under the bus, right?
He will forever be that way.
And I think this is really important because as we are fleshing out Eve, as we're looking at to her as a whole person, I think this was she was also the first woman to feel unsupported and alone. Because here you are in relationship. You're the only two. You make a mistake. It's a huge mistake. It's catastrophic. And the one person who should be with you, who may have been standing next to you when you made this mistake, says, the woman you gave me, so you're blamed. You feel unsupported. You feel alone. And it's devastating.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that a lot. Where were you? But now you're like, I was on my own in this.
And there's two parts to this, right? Because we can take Adam and Eve's story, and that's something that can be within, a married couple. It can be within friends. It can be within, siblings. Because I think of that a lot with my siblings. There's like, listen, I know my reputation in my family. If you come from a big family, everybody has their role. And I fluctuated because typically originally it started with me and my little brother, and then we grew to my older brothers, so then we were the younger ones, and then we grew to my foster siblings, and then it became like 7 of us. So I ended up in the middle, went from the oldest child to the middle child, and I've pretty much been in the middle child era, but still one of the oldest as well. And whenever we would get in trouble, my mom would do this thing as, if one did something wrong, we all got in trouble. So then that provided a sense of division because I didn't want to go down with them. So naturally they did it. I was that person. Yes. My siblings will tell you I was the canary who would toot, toot, toot. Because I didn't want to go down with the punishment. I didn't. I didn't want to go down with the punishment. My mom was relentless. You stare at the wall, no TV, no nothing. And she would punish you. It would be a privilege if you would be able to do Bible study with her, because during that time, AOL dial-up was a thing. Watching TV, going outside, hanging out with friends, things like that. When you get all that straight from you, you're a bored person. You're very bored. So, but I didn't want to be a part of the punishment. So I remember one time, not to go too long, but one time I think my brothers were jumping on the bed. They broke part of the bed frame. They hid it in the closet. I didn't know anything about it, but everybody else knew about it. So it was like 4. So my other 4 siblings knew about it. So of course my mom's like, all right, who did it? Nobody was fessing up with it. I was like, I had nothing to do with it. So it's not hard to get into that Adam role and throw somebody under the bus.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay. I'm going to lay off of Adam a little bit, but I get that. But I just think when the whole thing, did God really say? She has the first identity attack.
You're right.
Let's give her grace.
She experienced it.
She there's distortion that occurs for her.
Of course.
I don't know if I would say it's complete denial on her part, but I think it was this like doubt entered through distortion.
It did because
right.
It did because also they ate from the tree, therefore they can see good and evil.
Yes, and I would say just as we're listening, what we tend to hear about Eve, I do not feel that she was tempted by I don't think it was out of a rebellious place. I think she was trying to become more like God. There was something about her yearning and reaching for that. And again, I think I do think it's important to remember there was someone in between her and God, which was Adam, right? I don't know. So I think there was something about Eve. There was how it pertains to us right now. I think maybe Eve wanted, she's defending God. There's maybe we have performance culture. We have this thing where we want to make sure we present things in the right way. And as women, we can fall into that, right? We want to present things in a certain way. I can struggle with that.
Oh, perfection is to the core. So I always want to put my best foot forward. Always want to put my best foot forward. And if I don't do that, it plays and it internalizes in myself, right? Because then we'll be our worst judge or our worst critic. But then also what's coming up in my head is that before that situation, the fall of man, right? We didn't have to worry about that. Which is where I go back to the judging harshly.
I know you do. And
I know we have to give grace.
Yes.
I know we have to give grace, and these things are needed.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we face right now as women, right, that I still want to be gentle with Eve,
Amen.
is that because of the fall, yet we are actually carrying responsibility without authority. And I think we forget that, in a sense, there was a certain level of authority that Adam had in that space because he was given a message. Because even when God came at the end, he went to Adam because he's like, Adam, I told you, essentially, I told you this. And I think I just think Adam gets off the hook a little bit here when we communicate about this situation. I just do, because I just think we're putting a responsibility on her that, she didn't necessarily have, that wasn't the authority space that was given to her in that. That wasn't the responsibility. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I think we face that as women today. There's a lot of responsibility put on us in certain places where we don't have the authority.
And then we have to take responsibility.
Take ownership
and responsibility for it.
And yes. And I think she's not a villain. She is our mirror.
I could see that. See, this is the purpose of this. This is why we're having this discussion, to be able to see the mirror. Because, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong in what you're saying. Again, this is why we have these conversations, because we have to take in consideration all aspects of it, right?
Yeah.
Even if it goes against what we think, which can be very hard.
And Eve is blamed for the fall, but rarely remembered for birthing life, for birthing the future.
That is true.
We don't really talk about her that way, right?
No.
It's like fall, but what about the fact that she's the mother of us all?
Yeah, mother of living. She is known as the mother of living, Adam's rib, or the completion of Adam's creation.
Yes.
So without her, we would not be complete.
Yes.
We would not be complete. So
there is no us without her.
There is no us without her. So we need her in her entirety.
Yes, in her entirety, right? Yes. And I just think that God didn't cancel Eve.
No.
God clothed her.
Yes.
And God remained present with her.
Yes.
And I think as women today, we can struggle with that in the sense of how the relevance for us is many of us are first, particularly women of color. And I feel this on huge levels. I feel that as being a woman in the ministry, in the family of churches that I'm in the region that I'm in. I feel that as a woman who's also an immigrant. So I feel that in many spaces. And I think in spaces where I've failed or I've been judged in that one, not as a whole person, but for that one moment, as we talked about earlier, it could be really, you start questioning yourself. And Eve reminds me, God never left.
You're right.
He took care of her. In fact, she was named, I believe, tell me if I'm correct, that she wasn't called Eve until after the fall. Was she?
I believe she. Yes, you're right. Yes, you are, because before before. I'm not sure if it's before the name or afterwards, because it's either she was named Eve, and then afterwards Adam called her his wife afterwards. So these titles came afterwards.
Okay, audience, you've got to go back and look at that, because we're gonna go look at that too. Yeah. For the sake of time, we can't give you all of it, but I think that's important because yeah, I think that's an important part. So let's put a pin in that one.
Yeah.
And definitely bring that back up next time. But I really do appreciate that aspect of Eve and God's relationship. We don't talk about it enough.
No.
And I think as we kind of try to come to a closing here, as much as possible, but it was after the fall.
It was. Yeah, you're right. I had to take. It took me a minute, because this is why it's important to know your word. It did intentionality. It didn't happen until afterwards.
Yes.
Because at that moment she was just known as woman.
Yes, and I believe Eve. We're gonna have to look at this next time we get together.
Yeah.
I've got to make sure I don't want to tell you something that's not, but I do think if Eve references life, mother, life. I think it does, but I got to go back and look. I don't want to put a pin in that.
Yep.
Don't quote me yet.
There was life before the fall, and there was life after the fall.
But God would still use her.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't over. She's not the villain. She's a mirror. And please remember that. She's a mirror that we get to see that even in our failings, God doesn't cancel us. Mm-hmm. Like we do. We cancel people.
Yes, we do.
Or we hold them to that one moment. But as we kind of pull it all together and end here, I think, do you mind reading Genesis 3:20? Do you have it available to you?
I do. 3:20. Mm-hmm. Yes, 3:20. So Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all living.
That's it.
Of all the living.
She would become the mother of all the living.
So it did happen. It definitely did happen after the fall.
After the fall. She was named the mother of all living after.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, I just think that is really key. The fact that she would be used to that capacity and still be seen in that way, despite her failings. Her one, grievous mistake, as it is, but again, it wasn't rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a desire to be something. And I think even the way, and I have to go, even the way I've taught this in the past, I've had to go back and go, oh, Eve, I am so sorry. I have taught this from a very paternalistic view. Mm-hmm. And I am so sorry. I appreciate that about God, that allows us to evolve and grow and mature and experience, to be able to rethink how we view and how we love and how we forgive. So I do want to leave us with a reflective question for us to think about until we get together next time, is what part, and I want to ask you that too, because you can then maybe answer a little bit of it or think about it too, is what part of your story has been reduced to one moment? And what might God be still naming life?
Too many to put down. So I feel like this will be next time when we get together. I think we could be able to highlight those moments, because with women or just with mankind, there's always that one moment that changes everything.
Yeah. I think next time I will probably share a little bit of that in my unpresentable part.
Which we didn't even get a chance to do.
Did we not share?
We did not share. What is our unpresentable part today?
Oh, okay. Why don't you go ahead and share yours?
Okay, so my unpresentable part today is emotional and physical drainage this week. So I had a hard time waking up and even getting here. It was a journey. So if I had it, I probably would have canceled, to be quite honest. But I knew that I needed to be here. So my emotion was saying, nope, not today. And it was giving like sore throat or you want to sleep more, things like that. But
yeah,
it's been a long week, and I was like,
yeah, I think I'm glad that we're doing unpresentable part at the end today, because I think my unpresentable part today was felt very performative. needing to present a certain, and I think even talking about Eve, needing to present perfect, perfect words, perfect presence. And I think I struggle with that because I come into spaces, especially coming from my West Indian background, is this level of excellence that I'm supposed to have, and that who I'm representing and who I'm reflecting. So I think coming to a space to be authentically me, that is a continual struggle for me to come in as a whole person. And so even talking about Eve and seeing her as a whole person, presenting myself as a whole person can sometimes be difficult because of the fear of judgment and my own people pleasing. So that's my unpresentable part. And I think that's a constant, like right below the surface. So that's the unpresentable part for me. So, well, next episode we kind of alluded to it earlier, but we're going to talk about what Eve heard and what we're still hearing. So I encourage you guys to subscribe, share, sit with Eve's story, and take the time to get to know her a bit. There's not a lot to read, but there's a lot to digest. So until next time, you have a great day.
Be blessed.
Be blessed.